If you're like me, a casual observer, then internet horror is something you've been aware of for a while. Among this internet thing is analog horror, pioneered by series like. Wait a minute! If you're watching this video, then you already know what analog horror is. I'm not going to insult your intelligence, it's quickly become the face of internet horror, especially on YouTube, and many people have aimed to hop onto this gravy train, for better or for worse. You've probably seen it already, but I'm going to mention it now. There's a new-ish series made by Foxymations, based on fairy tales, and I reckon it's got room for improvement. I'm going to cut the internet funny man jib and level with you, viewer. I'm not gonna rip into this series, as I have a suspicion it was made by someone under the age of 18, and I don't want to stamp out a kid's passion for creation. I just want to lend some advice over. It's also really handy not to start fights over the internet, so I'm not gonna go over and summarize the whole thing either. I'm sick of explain channels doing that. It's lazy. Go watch the series for yourself. I'm not a crook. Before I offer words of advice, I'd like to indulge myself and say that I can appreciate the work that went into this series. I draw and write as hobbies, so seeing animation like this with all these special effects is impressive for someone's first series. While the visuals are fine, the plot leaves a bit much to be desired at first, and structurally, the story suffers from the first problem I noticed: the violation of show don't tell. Now, this isn't a rule per se, it's merely a convention, but analog horror is the perfect medium to portray a story by showing the events instead of relying on excessive exposition. A good example of this is Jonai Home Entertainment. In this series, we're shown the lens on Neptune, but we aren't told what it is, and we have to figure out what this means later on. I won't spoil anything, as I thoroughly suggest that you watch the series for yourself. Again, it's not a slasher and has a cosmic horror thing going on, but I dig it. The Big Bad Wolf series has things just told through text on screen. While this is effective at communicating information, it can feel clunky and poorly inserted. Furthermore, the conversation between characters doesn't feel like they come naturally, which leads to stilted dialogue.
Look, don't worry. She should be arriving soon. Mom takes a while sometimes. That's true. There was a time she took even longer than this, so I don't think there's anything to worry about.
It's all very reminiscent to me of an interview Mark Hamill once had.
I remember there was one line that I just begged him to take out of the screenplay, and he finally did.
And it's when, the line?
Yes, boy, I'll never forget it as long as I live. I sometimes dream about this line. It was just coming upon the exploded planet of the princess,
Right.
Alderaan, and it's
Alderaan.
totally been blown away. And Harrison says, "Look, kid, I've done my part of the bargain. When I get to an asteroid, you, the old man, and the droids get dropped off." And my line was, "But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Soas, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault." And I thought, who talks like this, George?
Never be afraid to do summary drafting. I'm not going to tell you how to write your own story, but personally, I would have used the analog horror medium to show more visual hints along the way, and then leading up to the wolf's immolation at the climax of the story, while also hinting more at who the witch is and their relation to the wolf. On the topic of the wolf, the way this series approaches horror is far too reliant on jump scares and shock content. Hi, I'm Unofficial Computer, and you're watching Cooked Meat, the show where we analyse your favourite analog horrors. Today's episode is about the Big Bad Wolf, the main antagonist of Foxymations' own analog horror. So, let's get to the numbers. The series lasting 5 episodes and a final kill count of 19, that's an average 2.6 kills the wolf has claimed per episode. My point is that when your antagonist can go toe-to-toe with the xenomorph from Alien 1979 or Michael Myers, you might want to consider less bloodthirsty methods of frightening your audience. If you need to kill someone, look no further than the mimic sequence from Vita Canis. In this part of the episode, a mimic breaks into someone's house. It's a butt-clenching sequence with a short, quiet moment as the victim filming hides in a closet. This brief respite disarms the audience, so when we see the mimic's finger curl around the door, it's already too late, and then boom! Immediate payoff with the mimic jump scare. It's a pretty good example of how tension is used to amp up the suspense and, as a result, the horror factor. It reminds me of Jaws in its approach and execution. Furthermore, we don't get a sequence of the mimic disemboweling this person, it just cuts, forcing the mind to fill in the blanks, something Alien 1979 did when the crew was slowly culled, and we never saw what came of them, except in the remaster where the formerly deleted cocoon scene is restored, but that's not relevant. There's a trace of this in the 5th episode, the one where Wolf massacres a family, where the wolf peers over a table, nabs a kid, drops his on-screen dead body to the side, and then we get a close-up of the other kid, when it immediately cuts to the room, with both kids behind the table in red, which has obvious meaning. I like this. It has tension, it disarms the audience, and then it doesn't show the kid getting murdered, which leaves the audience to fill in the grisly blanks. Oh look, a segue. While this is tense, it leads back to my criticism of shock content.
Let me say up front that I regret having to temper my heartfelt congratulations with a strong measure of disappointment.
At the start of the series, it was scary faces and dead bodies, and while this is shocking at first, the audience quickly acclimatizes to it, which leads to the problem many slasher filmmakers have, where they feel the need to one-up the last production in terms of violence and gore, which is what happens in this series. We get on-screen kills and even on-screen child death later. Now, in an age of Gestapo-like restriction on our freedom of expression, dead kids on screen is a very gutsy move, which I haven't seen since Harmony and Horror by Battington roughly 5 years ago. However, after the 3rd kill or so, I picked my jaw off the ground and got used to the fact that nobody was making it out of that house alive, and sooner rather than later the kills weren't shocking to me. People just come to expect the violence, so it no longer becomes shocking, and, as a result, it isn't scary, it's just pulpy, like a Terrorizer film. Being honest, pulpy is fine. One of my favourite films ever is Evil Dead 2, and that's not exactly highbrow.
Groovy.
However, as an adage, good stories often have something to say. I doubt The Wolf represented a higher concept, however, for your next project, if you have one, keep that in mind. If you have something to say, or a worldview you wish to convey, put it in your story. It'll add a layer of complexity and nuance which people will appreciate. Alien 1979, Aliens 1986, Terminator 2, Robocop, they all had something to say. While only one of them is really a horror film, keep a lookout for the concepts at the core of their stories, and you'll find there's a new layer of meaning to them. Be careful not to lay it on too thick though, or you get John Carpenter's They Live 1988, which, while thought-provoking, doesn't give itself enough time to actually explore anything. But if you want to be a pulpy slasher with lots of chunky salsa, that's fine too, because they are thoroughly entertaining. This is my critique, video over.
Look, don't worry. She should be arriving soon. Mom takes a while sometimes.